Hey everyone, this is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we're taking a look at the Mars-Pluto square that's happening from Scorpio to Aquarius, and we're going to do all 12 whole sign horoscopes and give you a feel for what topics are being activated in your natal chart right now. I recommend listening to your rising sign for this particular video, but if you're someone who likes your sun sign horoscope, that's of course no big deal. Just listen to whatever sign you prefer. The reason that I recommend your rising sign is when you listen to your rising sign horoscope, it will correspond with the whole sign version of your birth chart, which means you get the most accurate house location of the actual transiting planets in your birth chart. In Hellenistic astrology, the kind of astrology that I practice, we use whole sign houses. So that's the view of the birth chart that a lot of people who listen to this channel are most familiar with already. But anyway, that's just a little tip for how to get the most out of this. Before we get into it, as always, remember to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell for updates so you know when a new episode has dropped. That really helps us as well. Drop a comment. The algorithm likes that. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on the website, nightlightastrology.com. Tomorrow night, I'm giving a live talk, a webinar, my monthly webinar series on Mercury's many faces. This is a series on the planetary archive, or the philosophical first principles of the planets, which is going to allow you to understand not only the deepest, sort of purest expression of the planet as a philosophical first principle in ancient philosophy and mysticism, but then when you pair that archive, that founding principle, with the other planets and their principles, that's when you learn how to create planetary combinations and delineations. So this is about giving you tools to learn how to make planetary pairings and combinations at a much deeper level. And I really can't recommend this series highly enough. I've put a lot of love into it. It seems like it might be like you look at on the surface, you're like looking at Mercury with other planets, but learning how to do this will help you understand every possible planetary combination. And we're going to do this again with Venus in November. So if you can't attend live, you get the recording, but I hope to see you guys tomorrow night. The other thing that is happening is our year one course is coming up. I'm going to take you over there. So go to the courses page, click on first year course, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, our first year course in Hellenistic astrology, one of 4 years worth of curriculum that we have for natal astrologers, 4 training programs, 4 years of awesome community learning. Our first year program, you don't have to take all of them either. You can take the first year as a standalone. A lot of people do that. It starts again November 8th. You will find an informational video on the page telling you about it. And at the end of today's video, that same informational video is tagged on at the end so you can hear me talk more about the program after today's content. At the bottom, you'll find the early bird enrollment options. This is available until October 24th. You can save significantly on the cost of the program, and there's need-based tuition assistance. So if you're someone who can't afford the course even at our sales rate, then check out the need-based tuition assistance. That allows you, if you're hurting financially or you're on a limited or fixed income or budget, or you have a high exchange rate because you're in another country, please do use that. We want to make sure that people who have a sincere desire to study a spiritual topic are never priced out of doing so. So on that note, we'll hope to see some of you in classes soon. All right, let's turn our attention to the real-time clock. Here we are, Wednesday, September 24th, and Mars, by this evening, will be just separating from the square to Pluto. Now, we've already covered this from an archetypal perspective earlier this week, so today it's going to be horoscopes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mention the interconnection between the whole sign houses that Mars and Pluto are meeting across. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remind you of 3 basic principles to think about given the topics of these houses. So that will be our format for today. We'll start with Aries, we'll go through Pisces, and it's my hope that paired with yesterday's content where we really unpack the archetypal dynamics of Mars-Pluto, that this topic-specific horoscope work today will give you a perfect complement of talks to experience and work with this transit. All right, so let me tell you next about the 3 topics that we're going to think about for all 12 whole sign horoscopes. Okay, so the first on my list of 3 things that we are going to talk about for all 12 whole sign horoscopes today are the topics of will, power, force, and ambition. When you put these 2 planets together, Mars and Pluto, you get very strong expressions of will, power, force, and ambition. When these 2 planets come together, it's as though they have a way of asking you, what do you want? What are you driving at? What is empowering? What is stripping you of your power? Where is your will? Where's the momentum pushing you? In what direction is the momentum pushing you right now? So anything to do with these kinds of words will be active for everyone, and we'll remind you of these as we go. The second one is catharsis and confrontation. What am I confronting right now? What am I facing head on? What am I having to deal with? Or what kind of cathartic moment emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, relationally am I facing right now? Think of a catharsis as a moment where a lot of different energy lines are kind of converging at the same time, and we feel as though something transformational and moving kind of peaks. Sometimes that feels a little destructive, often very creative, but I think a good word for that experience is catharsis. And then finally, number 3 on the list are eruptions from the unconscious. What kinds of things are just kind of coming up from deeper, more hidden or unseen places within ourselves, our relationships, the workplace, wherever the case might be, whatever the case might be. So those are our 3 things we're going to think about. Now, let's start with Aries, and we'll go through each sign with some brief surveying of the houses that are covered. So we have Mars and Pluto squaring off between the 8th and 11th houses if you're in Aries. This brings a place of soul contracts in the 8th house together with a place of social and group dynamics. And so what I would look at right here are what kinds of deep, fated karmic encounters are you having within groups of people that you belong to, among people like allies, friends, colleagues, but within group settings, among friends, colleagues, with respect to the people that you share similar goals or ambitions with. What kinds of confrontations are happening? In what way are you supporting one another? In what way is a catharsis happening within certain soul contracts and certain group or social scenes or networks of people? Also, what kind of material is erupting from the unconscious within certain group spaces, community spaces, or some of the specific relationships within those places? What are they providing you with? What kind of penalties karmically are coming up right now to be paid off somehow? What kinds of confrontations are occurring? And what kind of material is erupting from the unconscious in these spheres of life? That's what I would be looking right now at right now if I was in Aries. I'm going to go ahead to Taurus, which I guess is now I'm going to read for myself because this is my rising sign. But we see that Mars is squaring Pluto from the 7th to the 10th, a place of relationships and the place of work or public facing self. When planets relate in these two areas, there's often an overlap between the topics of marriage and work. And that might be in the realm of a spouse's life and things that are happening for them. Or it could be that there's conversations taking place within the relationship that have to do with each person's professional direction or contribution through what they earn or how they contribute or provide through what they do for a living. The actions of force and ambition are also present when these two planets meet in relationships that take place in the work environment. So, for example, who or what are you facing as competitors, or who or what are you seeing as an ally to cooperate with and get something done or get something accomplished? What are you having to face or deal with? What powers are erupting from the unconscious within key relationships that maybe exist within the workplace? So a lot of the ways that the 7th house will relate to the 10th will be about interpersonal dynamics within the workplace or within the public sphere of your life. So how are work relationships being impacted right now would be a simple one for Tauruses. However, the other one would be how is the conversation about your public facing self, your responsibilities in the world, your vocation, your professional sense of direction interacting right now with the forces of change that are coming through Mars in the house of love and relationships. So this is maybe a crossroad moment for your relationship and whatever needs it has and how they're inflecting themselves upon your career direction right now. That's always an interesting way of looking at it. All right, let's go to Gemini. So for Gemini, Mars is squaring Pluto from the 6th to the 9th. This combination to me brings up questions of what is worth working and sacrificing for, what higher principles, ideological, philosophical, moral, religious, political, are you feeling like you need to act on behalf of? Or what things are you learning right now? What kind of education are you pursuing? What kinds of conflicts or confrontations are you having with teachers or places of higher learning? What kinds of confrontations are coming up within religious spheres of life? And then also, what are the guiding principles of your life, and what kind of service do they put you in? What are you serving? How are you serving? How is your life acting in some ways sacrificially for something higher? And maybe that's also, again, something that you are learning or developing as a skill or an ability, something that you have to grind away at and get better at through a lot of intense effort. Those kinds of things come to my mind now for Geminis as well. So those two planets suggest, in these two houses, suggest the potential for some conflict that is intellectual, ideological, philosophical, moral, or some real pedal to the metal kind of energies with respect to like learning or developing skills or crafts or abilities that require a lot of work. So for Cancers, we're looking at the Mars-Pluto dynamic across the 8th and the 5th. We're talking about a house that is about pleasure and about joy and creativity and creative fulfillment. And then with Pluto in the 8th house, we're talking about a space of soul contracts with other beings, what we owe people and what they owe us, and the kind of invisible balancing that's always taking place karmically within relationships. This has the possibility of being a moment of profound creative collaboration with other people, or of a kind of creative breakthrough moment, a strong force of creative self-expression that may come forth from you and allow you to be liberated from stuck situations. I like these two planets as allowing you to be free from karmic entanglements that are unhealthy by simply cutting the cord. I also like this exchange for the sake of facing or confronting things in relationships, because what you're craving is a kind of honest or authentic form of self-expression. The 5th house, Mars, says, I'm just going to say exactly what I think, exactly how I feel. And then how does that kind of run into Pluto in the 8th house and create meaningful changes in, the terms of my relationships, the sort of invisible karmic contracts. So I like these two spaces a lot. Okay, so for Leos, we're looking at Mars in the 4th house, and we're looking at Pluto in the 7th. So willpower, force, ambition, catharsis, confrontation, eruptions from the unconscious, most of this coming from the space of home and family in the 4th house, or love and relationships in the 7th. So when these two planets face off in the 4th and the 7th, you'll see things like a spouse processing some of their, maybe the various challenges that they face growing up as a kid. You're holding space for a spouse or partner who's doing some ancestral healing, or some family, some processing of the past or of family wounds. Or you might be getting in touch with the shadows of one another and your family backgrounds. I mean, that's a big part of any relationship, is exploring how each person has been conditioned by their upbringing in their past, and and learning to appreciate each other's struggles and unique backgrounds and histories. This is really appropriate for Mars and Pluto in the 4th and 7th. You can also think of this as foundation shaking events around home, family, marriage, and relationships, that there's some force of change or evolution taking place, both with respect to where you find ground and home and stability and safety and privacy, and also who or what you share that space with intimately in terms of partnership. So let's go on to Virgo. For Virgo, we have Mars in the 3rd and Pluto in the 6th. So I look here and I think to myself, one of the things that I love about the Indian conceptualization of the 3rd house is that it's related to mind and psychology and emotional impulses and kind of like the desire body and how it plays out in our words, thoughts, and feelings. So for Virgos, there's strong emotional impulses that are coming through and needing to speak right now. But with Pluto in the 6th house, a place that was associated with conflict, it may happen that whatever is on your mind and heart, whatever's coming through emotionally, whatever truth you're speaking or whatever emotional impulses you're allowing to be expressed, it may create conflict. There may be some, you may be more provocative than you intend to be, or you may accidentally put your foot in your mouth. You do have to be careful of becoming overwhelming or domineering or just too much mentally, verbally, emotionally, but also the power to change your mind right now, or to have to speak or say something and allow for strong emotional impulses to exist within you is probably really important. So those are some of the things I'm looking at for Virgos. Also, the topic of siblings, keep that in mind as maybe important to this transit. Now with Libra, we look at the Mars-Pluto dynamic across the 2nd and the 5th. So we're talking about the place of money, resources, and the place of creativity and joy. The 5th house being the house of joy and happiness, good fortune. The 2nd being a place of material resources. Right now, it could be that the bottom line of things like paying the bills, kind of like survival in the material world, is making it hard to relax and enjoy, or making it hard to have fun. It could also be that you're looking at a healthy balance of work and material concerns, and then on the other hand, joy, pleasure, fun, and creativity. The material sphere of the 2nd house is something that, so it was like a fly. I just killed a being. So sorry, guys. So there's the concern of the 2nd house with materiality, and the 5th house concern with one's dharma, one's authentic joy, could be at odds right now. The concern with what I have, what I need, what I want, time, money, energy, resources, running up against, but what's creatively fulfilling? What brings me joy or happiness? Those two things in intense dialogue right now for Librans. All right, for Scorpios, we take Mars in the 1st and we square with Pluto in the 4th. So this is the house of selfhood and identity, body, health, character, and the 4th house, home, family, roots, the private or internal sphere. We may be asked to practice some level of healthy detachment from our strongest emotional impulses or the things we feel like acting on or doing. Mars in the 1st can be a very aggressive, very assertive, sort of a little bit more confrontational, strong and independent. The Pluto in the 4th that it's running into may say, hey, step back, go within, detach, try to see the big picture, try to be a little bit more detached and rational. But maybe it's not time for that. On the other hand, maybe it's time to act and express and allow yourself to be honest and authentic with how you're feeling, and be direct. So I could see these two planets in a bit of a push and a pull between, the right use of emotional energy and force and self-expression, and some healthy level of detachment or inwardness and almost like stoicism. These two planets can also create a tremendous pressure to change or evolve or transform personally as you are getting in touch with things happening around home and family or parents or living environment. So keep all of those things in mind. All right, let's go on to Sagittarius. So with Sagittarius, we have Mars in the 12th and Pluto in the 3rd. This is one where I would be careful of anyone or anything in your environment that is creating stress or drama for you. The 12th house Mars can be people or things that undermine us, like hidden enemies or toxic traits within ourselves that are making us sick or unhealthy, or that we are undermining ourselves with in some way. So be aware of who and what is healthy for you and what isn't in your environment, the people, the places, the food, the whatever you take into your mind and body. Mars in the 12th is trying to draw your attention perhaps to what is healthy and supportive and what is going to undermine your sanity, your wellness, your stability, and understanding the difference between those things with this transit is probably going to be key. There could also be some way in which you're blindsided by something in the unconscious, something I didn't see coming, something that I wasn't expecting, a conversation, an emotional outburst, someone that I didn't even know was upset with me, or I guess I had an enemy in the workplace and I didn't even know it. But how you meet these things with resilience, with courage, with openness, with honesty, with kindness, the confrontation that you're about to have mentally, emotionally, psychically from the unconscious domain can be very healing and very enlightening. But I think a lot of it will depend on your ability to remain calm and non-reactive. Take the information that's coming up and be very discerning with it for you Sagittarians. All right, so for Capricorns, we have Mars in the 11th with Pluto in the 2nd, and these two houses, the 11th and the 2nd, are going to be connected to things like groups, allies, friends, networks, colleagues, social dynamics, and some degree of social happiness, alongside of things like money and resources, and what you have or cultivate or develop as a material resource. So right now, with these two things in mind, I wonder, what allies are the best ones for building your wealth, your success, your business, your bank account, and which are the kinds of friends, groups, or people professionally or socially who are detracting from or draining your energy, your resources, your time, your money. The potential for positive, deep, meaningful collaboration around things like groups of people, friends, networks, colleagues, social life, and things like money and assets are, I think, really good right now. But on the other hand, if there are any people or situations that are draining you and taking away from your resources, and there isn't like a reciprocity, or the cost benefit analysis doesn't make sense, then be very careful of that and change the situation accordingly. All right. For Aquarians, we're talking about Mars in the 10th house of career, Pluto in the 1st house of identity, and we're looking at the force of ambition and willpower taking place in the career house, but it's feeding off from the evolutionary impetus of Pluto in your 1st house to change, to be reborn, to transform, to explore the different dimensions of your own psyche, especially the shadows or unconscious places. Pluto always wants us to do that in the 1st house. So right now, the potential for personal evolution, self-discovery, personal individual growth. It's all about who am I? Who is my character? What is authentic to my own nature? And the force of action, change, ambition, conflict, confrontation in the workplace are coming together. So watch for those two areas. All right, finally, with Pisces, we have Mars in the 9th and Pluto in the 12th. Here, we could think about a crisis of faith or meaning. We could think about a transformation of understanding or philosophy. We could talk about meaningful conflicts or confrontations in learning environments, religious environments, or within different ideological conversations or debates. This would be a time that you could easily get seduced by the need to be right, or you could easily be bullied by someone else who's being, a mental or spiritual or moral kind of self-righteous bully. So you want to be careful of not engaging in conflicts and power struggles about who is the most right or the most holy or the most sacred. At the same time, I love this combination for the pursuit of truth, investigation, deep research, and finding meaning in places that require a lot of depth and like probing more deeply into things. So all of those things also taking place in a very spiritual, religious, philosophical kind of educational environment for Pisces. So again, for everyone, remember these 3 things to watch for. Will, power, force, ambition, really coming on strong right now. Catharsis and confrontation, and eruptive energies coming from unseen, invisible spaces. Now I can see them. Wow, are they powerful, transformative, sometimes destructive, almost always creative in the end. I hope that this was useful. I got through a horoscope episode. I thought I was going to die at like Virgo, but somehow I made it. Anyway, more good content to come this week. We're going to take a look at Venus approaching the south node of the moon in the midst of an eclipse that just took place around that south node. That's going to be really interesting. So yeah, I can't wait to share that episode with you. Hope you're having a good day. Stick around after I sign off. There's an informational video about the upcoming year 1 program. Come study with us. If you really like astrology, if you like ancient astrology, if you like understanding the philosophical, spiritual, psychological roots of the whole system, and you want to go beyond pop astrology, you will love these courses. They are the best thing that I've created outside of my kids. You know, the thing that I love the most outside of my family. You know, really, truly, these are things I've poured most of my adult life into creating. And I can't wait to share them with a new group of students. So hope to see you soon. Take it easy. Bye. Hey, everyone. Thanks for sticking around. I'm excited to tell you about our upcoming program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. This is our first-year course in Hellenistic astrology, and it begins again this November. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the course, the format of the course, and how to register. So let's go ahead and get into it. What is this course about? Well, if you are not familiar, ancient Hellenistic astrology is the earliest and original form of horoscopic astrology. All of the subsequent forms and schools of astrology that have existed over thousands of years come from these philosophical and theoretical roots. And so what you're doing when you study Hellenistic astrology is you're going back to understand the why behind absolutely everything. Why were there ever such a thing as houses and signs in the first place? How were the planets ever assigned to rule various portions of the zodiac in the first place? How do you use the categories of essential dignity, and why were they ever created in the first place? If you're someone like me, you like to know the why behind things, because once you understand the why, then you know how to use things more intuitively. So really the point of Hellenistic astrology, in my opinion, is not so much about going back and becoming a traditional astrologer or just being traditional for the sake of being traditional, as much as it is about grasping the roots of the entire system and paradigm. When you understand those roots, you have more intuition and understanding, which allow for you to be much more artful and fluid in the way that you speak the language of astrology. We call this class Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic because while it is about going back to understand the philosophical, theoretical, technical roots of the tradition, it's also about fluidly bridging those things with modern astrology and all of its most unique contributions. For example, modern astrology has given us so much psychological depth and personal depth. And so in a modern astrological setting, you're going to get the ability to explore your own character, your own psychology, and you're going to be able to utilize astrology for a process of healing and personal transformation. But when you pair that with ancient astrology, and it's almost like predictive karmic analytics, you really have a full toolkit to work with. And so that's also a great mission of ours at Nightlight, is to bridge ancient and modern forms, which is why we call the program Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. So that's just a little kind of overview of the program. If you want to know more about the specifics of the curriculum and of the syllabus, what I encourage you to do is go over to nightlightastrology.com, click on the courses page, go to the first year course, scroll down, and you'll see this over 12 months you'll learn about. And here you're going to see more of a detailed breakdown of the curriculum itself. I can promise you that if you've studied astrology in modern context, but you've never gone back to the ancient roots, while some of these topics may look familiar to you and you go, oh, I've already learned about that. Unless you've studied them from the Hellenistic perspective, I guarantee that you are not going to be familiar with this content. Hellenistic astrology is mind-blowingly new and interesting for most people. And if you've never studied it, again, don't assume that anything on this list is something you're going to be familiar with. In that way, the program is really ideal for a variety of different people, and I'll say more about that in a second. So what is the format of the course? Let's go to that next. Scroll down and you're going to see that the course includes 30 online webinars that I lead throughout the year. Over the course of a year together, I have 30 classes that are broken into different units of material. In between those classes, we have breakout study sessions with your course director and 2 TAs. They're going to lead you through Q&A sessions and tutoring sessions to make sure that you have a lot of support in between major units of study. In addition, we also have an interactive group forum discussion where you can ask questions year-round and get an answer within a business day in the student forum, where a lot of people also connect and build community. Lots of people in that forum also develop like little meetup groups outside of class. That's very common in all of our programs. It's a very community-loving, warm space where anyone's also welcome. Throughout the course, you're also going to find that for every lesson, if you're just there as a hobby student, you can just listen to the webinars. They're all recorded for you. So if you can't make the live webinars, everything is housed on the website as recordings. I'd say about 40 or 50% of our students are going to be following along at their own pace, whereas the other half might be attending the live webinars. But it's really kind of, you know, if you can attend a few and then 1 week you got to be gone, the recordings are always there. You have lifetime access to everything in the course, so it's not a big deal. For every lesson as well, if you're someone who wants to go really, really deep, maybe you have the intention to practice professionally, this course is set up with an optional certification exam at the end from our school, from our program. So you can, you know, if you want to build that resume and develop the credentials from our programs, you can do that, but you also, it's optional, so you don't have to. And outside of every lesson, we have recommended reading. We have supplemental bonus content, all of which is optional, but it's there for people who might want a lot more, whereas some people will take the webinars themselves, and that'll be plenty. So it's really flexible in that way. Also, this is one program within 4 years of curriculum that are meant to go together. And so most people who come through our first year program will end up taking our second year program, where we develop forecasting and prediction and transit tracking techniques. Our third year program, which is aimed at counseling and psychology. So psychological counseling skills is our third year program. And then the Oracle Within, which is our exploration of the philosophical, spiritual roots of the divinatory oracular tradition of astrology. So there's a lot of material there. We also have another 1 year program in horary astrology for some people who want to add that predictive tool to their toolkit. So there's just a lot of material at Nightlight that this class is actually just one part of, which can be taken standalone, or for some people, they get into it, they're going to love it. You're going to hang out with us for 3 or 4 years worth of content. This program is ideal for a number of different types of students of astrology. I'll say that for starters. So let's see here. I'll stop sharing this. So we have there's a profile of the typical students who come through our courses. One is going to be people who just want a very guided introduction to ancient astrology because you've never had it before. Maybe you're only familiar with modern, and you want that guided, structured approach to learning traditional for the first time. Also, people who are brand new to astrology in general, there's no better place to start than at the roots of the ancient foundations. So whether you're a total beginner or just a beginner to Hellenistic, this is a great place to start. If you are someone who's been around astrology for a long time, but you've never had a guided, structured approach to Hellenistic astrology, again, this is a great place to start. I promise you, Hellenistic is very different than what you're familiar with, and you're going to need a guided and structured approach at some point in time. I also think for people who are looking for a lineage, which means not just a bunch of information, but a practitioner-specific based approach where you get to see a practitioner work with clients. You get to hear how a practitioner has prioritized different techniques and why. You're going to get a structured, spiritually grounded focus at Nightlight as well, where if you're looking for someone who practices astrology but also values grounded, everyday spiritual practice, that's Nightlight. If you want a community that's been in the industry for a long time now, this is our 16th year of teaching programs and guiding students through trainings. So all of those things, if they matter to you, this is a great place to study. It's a warm community atmosphere. It's spiritually grounded. It's focused. It's academically rigorous. It's going to provide you the appropriate preparation for practicing professionally, especially if you go through all of our programs. But also for those who are just curious and love astrology for your own personal interests, this is going to be a great place for you to learn and grow and thrive and feel like you have a lot of support around you in the curriculum, the teachers, the community, as you're developing, what might just be a personal interest or spiritual hobby. So that is who it's ideal for. Finally, how you register. You go over to the website. I'm going to take you back there. And it's at the bottom of the first year page. You're going to find that the early bird rate is in effect until October 24th. You can save significantly off the cost of the course when you use the early bird rate, where you can pay in full, or use an early bird installment rate plan. Both are going to save you off significantly off the cost of the course. But also at Nightlight, it has always been our mission to make sure that astrological education is accessible for everyone. So please, if you are someone who would love to take this course, but maybe you can only afford a small amount of tuition per month, use the tuition assistance. It is there. All you got to do is apply. You fill out the little form. You tell us your situation. If you're on a fixed income, if you're on a limited income, if you're part-time, if you're in between jobs, if you don't make a lot and you're on that fixed budget, we understand. We don't want people to hurt themselves trying to study something that is spiritual that we feel should be very accessible for everybody. So if you're someone who could use a little help to make this program happen, for whatever reason, maybe you're a single parent, or you're on disability, or you're retired, or you're on a fixed income, whatever the case is, use that tuition assistance. Also, people in other countries who have extreme, exchange rates, we get it. So just use the tuition assistance, and we'll be glad to make sure that the price point is accessible. For us, as a spiritual topic, we're a business at the end of the day, but we believe that this is a spiritual topic. And so accessibility has been a part of our model for 16 years now. We've never not had one of our training programs with affordable sliding scale-based prices for people who need it. So please take advantage of that. It's all there for you. I hope to see you in classes soon. And if you have any questions about the program whatsoever, direct them to us at info@nightlightastrology.com. And I hope to see you all coming up here in November. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.